Hello, my name is Malia Shakni, and this is my conceptual framework and discipline philosophy project. As I progress through my framework today, unfortunately, we won't have a lot of time to discuss everything, but for the sake of time, I'm going to highlight what I believe to be the most important aspects. I'm going to first discuss my classroom management theories and research-based practices, and this section of my presentation outlines my beliefs regarding discipline, including behavioral and instructional engagement. I've created a let's talk approach to discipline and behavior intervention based off of the restorative conversation approach. And in this approach, after the behavior occurs, the student is confronted by the teacher. And this approach is more likely to occur in an instance when behavior is dealt with as soon as it occurs and is not ignored by the teacher to be acknowledged at a later time. But if the behavior is ignored, then I might start the let's talk method by saying, I noticed this behavior, let's talk about it, and then proceed with the question and writing listed here. And in this chart above, this allows students who may struggle to articulate how they feel to identify how they might be feeling. And this chart is a personalized instruction for students who are on the spectrum who often struggle to express their emotion. And my beliefs for implementing discipline in the classroom also stem from this choice theory. I do believe students behave the way they do to satisfy an innate basic human need, and I want to provide students with choices when possible using this choice approach theory. And just following this observe, explain, implement, choice, and no excuses steps, I do believe that students can come to a knowledge of understanding how positive behaviors and doing the right thing, these appropriate actions, do actually get them what they want. And then in this green section, this discipline philosophy section box, I have a lot of different beliefs. I'm authoritative and feel as though it is my job to accept responsibility and leadership as a teacher, but I also want to ignite curiosity and excitement in my learners, being that ENFP personality type. So I'll just highlight a few things in this section. I believe students are naturally disruptive and need conditioned appropriately, but this conditioning can take place in the home before the child becomes a student. Teachers must take the time to condition students and model behavior to them. I use the example of a child that says, mine, when they want a toy and take it. This is the natural response, and we have to teach children to share. And so I do think token reward systems that are personalized and individualized are effective in managing behavior. The word discipline derives from the root that means hearing, so that discipline is the trait of hearing and following orders and instructions. So I expect students to listen and repeat, a sort of conditioning, but that leads to my next point, which is compliance. And compliance is expected of my students, but is not a goal to be met so the students comply to the teacher's commands. Rather, it's a life skill students need to understand to function in the real world. We all have bosses and government authorities. And then I also believe every student possesses the potential to grow and change in their behavior and should be rewarded and acknowledged. As it relates to diversity regarding my discipline philosophy, I've touched on a little bit, but I think every student should be given an equal opportunity to speak on behalf of their actions, and every student exhibits behavior that is to be rewarded, even if the behavior isn't exceedingly good, as we might see it often. And then students' behavior has nothing to do with their physical features or physical and intellectual abilities, but has a lot to do with what they have been taught and what has been modeled to them in their home, and therefore differentiated discipline actually is necessary. And then upon entering my classroom, every student has the opportunity to represent themselves in a new way. I do not have a preconceived thought or opinion of my student before they come in. And in this cultural diversity section of my framework, I have added in 2 personal creations. One is a video about racism and the effects it has had in education from some of my personal friends from Ball State. And another is a website offering a portfolio of several projects I've created that are differentiated instruction and implementive assistive technology for students with disabilities. My beliefs regarding diversity as it relates to my views on literacy, instruction, and assessment are not much different than in my discipline philosophy. As you can see, I've included a series of diverse texts. I see a huge significance in reading diverse texts as read-alouds. I see them as fostering diversity in the classroom in a way that is authentic, and I've written equitable instead of equal. children may need different literacy personalized instruction that may not be equal, but they are all equitable. That also means each student has access to learning or differentiated instruction. And then in our IRAs, Circle Time and Reader and Writers Workshop, which I've listed up here, these also foster diversity if every voice is heard. And I believe if every voice is heard, then the perspectives of culture are magnified. And then also another thing I find greatly important in literacy instruction is students understanding their identity, and this is by researchers. So they're able to read text in light of who they are and make connections that are authentic, thus allowing them to grow. So that's why I've created this. And assessment is personalized to each learner, but the outcome is unaffected by the color of one's skin or abilities. And so while we're on the topic of assessment, I've included some pictures of what some of this diverse instruction might look like with these different types of assessments. So now I'd like to transition to my philosophy regarding literacy instruction, and there's so much I could say, but I don't really have a lot of time, so I'll just talk about a few things. Engagement theory, essentially I want to build students who might or who have high self-efficacy and intrinsic motivation. By doing so, I believe the research that proves students need to participate in authentic literacy activities when they collaborate with classmates. And these kind of include what are listed here, giving students a chance to express their ideas and talk about books they read and talk with classmates, which also goes into my social learning theory, which I have listed here, that plays a role in that. I actually think that students working together provides a sense of modeling, and then they can see other students doing things and be motivated by that. Additionally, I hold a constructivist approach to learning. I think it is the role of the student to be active and engage learners who construct their own knowledge, and then the role of the teacher to engage these learners with experiences so that they can construct their own knowledge. And this supports my desire to have students that have high self-efficacy. And then students build on this knowledge and things like these reading and writing workshops and interactive read-alouds. And something that I did as a child was a daily writing journal, and this really improved my writing. I did it at home and in school. And so I have this vision that my students would have these journals and write in them every day, and that it would really foster just a love of learning and creativity and reading and writing ultimately. And then also fluency is very important because it determines the ability of the student to read and thus learn independently. And so this is self-efficacy again, and I'd like to do a read aloud speed read with comprehension questions at the end, and this teaches students what to look for, what might be important in pieces of text, and it also teaches them to obtain information quickly, which I think is a great strength. And I have very vague memories of doing this in elementary school, so that's why I'm really wanting to implement this more as a teacher. And then over in the classroom environment section, I've also included instructional videos because I think that they are essential in virtual learning. And I also have included word walls because they are crucial in teaching vocabulary and phonics. And so I really want to implement both of these in my classroom. As it relates to literacy assessment, I'm going to scroll back up to that. I am a full advocate for the backward design because it ensures instruction activities are designed to meet specific learning goals. And I actually created an entire 10-day unit based on assessment, and it really put into perspective for me the importance of planning assessment first. And so, yeah, I really am an advocate for that. And so I'd say I've grown a lot professionally this semester. Before this semester, I'd never created a discipline philosophy before, so I developed a lot of basic knowledge about what to include in crafting one and what my personal beliefs are. And the theories that I have discussed, such as choice theory, constructivism, and social learning theory, became more important to my teaching. I don't want to create my own conclusions about educating without evidence and research from experienced professionals. And I've also developed my values for teaching. But in terms of how I view my students as knowledge constructors of literacy, my students work hard. My students are not defined by the work they produce. My students are kind, and my students know they are gifted and use their gifts. And although I have seen growth, I am sure the growth process will continue in this coming semester or the coming semesters. I am sure my discipline philosophy will continue to grow as I implement strategies and approaches with students and see what works and what does not. And I want to continue to grow in my knowledge of teaching literacy. The thought of teaching a child to read actually kind of frightens me, even though I'm already doing it a lot now. I definitely need to continue to implement the ideas that I have into my actual teaching. It is easy to hold the belief, but hard to implement it oftentimes.